Hey everybody, it's Boo Ray Perry from Tampa, Florida, and today I want to talk about the IBIS on the Fuji X100VI. I got my Fuji X100VI, I guess about 2 weeks ago or so, and I still have my V, which I will be selling soon, and I'm gonna hate to see this camera go because I've gotten so much joy out of this camera. But before I sell it, I wanted to do a couple of comparisons where I looked at some of the things that are different between the V and the 6 because I've made videos of why you should upgrade, and the two things I talked about when upgrading were the bigger megapixel sensor and the IBIS. And so I really wanted to find out, is the IBIS really that big of a deal for me? Because you hear about IBIS, right, all the time. They always talk about it. It's got an IBIS, it's 3 stops of IBIS. But do you really get the 3 stops? Do you really use the IBIS? Does it do for you what they say it's going to do for you? Right? Or are you just using it as an excuse because you want to buy the new camera? It's perfectly fine. You don't have to justify it in your body. You can buy whatever you want to buy. And I've certainly done it. But I guess as a way to kind of justify to myself, I wanted to prove that getting the IBIS in the Fuji X100VI would be worth the upgrade from the 5. And before we get into this, because we're going to look at some images, we're going to do a little deep dive into comparing some images, I do want to remind you to be sure and follow me. Go to my group on Facebook. It's called Pro Photo Talk with Boo Ray Perry. And if you go there, you can join that community. And it's a great place to ask questions. And there's a bunch of photographers in there. And they're always eager to help each other. And it's a wonderful community. And also be sure and follow me on Instagram and follow me on Threads. The Instagram is where I like to post pictures and occasional joke or two, but Threads is where I post like every day. So I will post 3-4 things a day, and sometimes it's photography related, and sometimes it's music, and sometimes it's just a joke. But it's a really good community there, and what I've noticed is that their algorithm at Threads is really good at pushing photography stuff out to you. So you don't have to follow photographers. You will get photographer stuff in your feed if you are on Threads and you post anything about photography or you read any threads from people who are photographers. You'll suddenly start to get a lot of photography stuff in your feed. So I've really been enjoying Threads, and you should check it out if you're not using it right now. All right, so let's go and take a look at these pictures and see if the IBIS is really doing for me what I was hoping it would do for me. So what I decided to do here was to take a series of images with both cameras, and I wanted to take the same image with both cameras, and I wanted to hold the camera the exact same way. It's a tricky thing to try and test IBIS because you're testing it versus hand holding the camera, and it's not quite as exact and scientific as it would be if you were doing a test with the camera on a tripod. But the whole point of IBIS is it's supposed to help you when you're hand holding the camera. So you kind of have to, just do the best you can. So I held my elbows in tight. I held the camera with both hands. I held it at the same distance from my body. And I did these series of pictures. And I did 2 or 3 shots at each shutter speed and then selected the best one. Because sometimes you shake more than other times. And I decided, okay, let's do 2 or 3 shots. Let's get my best effort from 2 or 3 shots at different shutter speeds so that I compare them. So this is the Fuji X100V, and we're going to zoom in. My focus point was right on the handle of this cup, and this is 100%. So 100% right here, and 1/60th of a second, and this is sharp. This is plenty sharp, and I shot at f4. I didn't shoot at f2 because I wanted to have a little bit of room with my depth of field. F2 can be so tricky and such a shallow depth of field. I'm like, no, I'll shoot at f4. And that way my shallow field would be, my depth of field would be deeper, and there's a little bit more room for, say, mistakes on my aiming point or anything along those lines. So I did all of these at f4. And by the way, if you don't know all of the things I'm saying, if you don't quite understand depth of field or you don't understand shutter speed or aperture, I have a whole series about this called Boo Ray Explains. And if you go to my channel and go to the very first one, you will be able to see all of them. They're in a what you call playlist there on the channel, and you will be able to see all of them. Also, don't forget, all of my gear is listed online, and if you go in the description, you click my link, you'll see all of my gear, all the stuff that I buy from the Fuji X100 series. And if you go and you click on one of those things and you buy something, then I get a couple of dollars, and it really helps me to keep this channel going. So here we go, back to our experiment. This is at 1/60th of a second. I started shooting photography in the 70s, And the general consensus then was you wanted your shutter speed to be about what your focal length on your lens was. And most of us were using cameras with a focal length of 35 millimeters, maybe 50 millimeters. So the general rule was, at least this is the way it was taught to me, was that 1/60th of a second is about as slow as you want to go with your shutter speed to make sure that you don't get any camera shake. So that's why I wanted to start it at 1/60th of a second. I know that at 1/60th of a second, if I'm shooting something that's not moving, I can get it tack sharp. It's not going to be a problem. So that's where we started. And then I started going down from there. So this is 1/60th of a second, and this is 1/30th of a second. Right off the bat, look at this one, and look at this one. We've already lost our focus. And again, I shot several images to make sure. And I think that if I had shot 6 images, I could have gotten one of these in focus if I had adjusted and maybe brought the camera in closer to my body. Maybe if I was standing up instead of sitting down, different factors come into play. I could have pulled this off at 1/30th of a second if I wasn't so close to the subject. There's always factors in play. But the bottom line is I couldn't. The bottom line is in a couple of shots, I could not get 1/30th of a second to be as sharp as 1/60th of a second. Here's 160, here's 130. So then I just kept going. Here's 1/15th of a second. And of course, not as sharp and even more out of focus as the one before. And here's 1/8th of a second, which, as you would expect, is completely, unusable and blurry. So now let's go to the Fuji X100VI with its in-body image stabilization. We're going to start. Oh, I'm sorry. I went one more. This is 1/4 of a second. This is 1/4 of a second with the X100V. All right. Boom. So now we got to go to the 6. And because the 6 has a larger sensor, when you zoom this into full size, you actually get closer. This is 100% on the 6. And as you can see, this is tack sharp. Very, very happy with that. This was as far as I could get with the Fuji X100V. Remember, the minute I went to 1/30th of a second, the minute I went one stop more, I lost my focus. So let's see what happens here with the 6 when I go one stop. Let's go to 1/30th of a second. And looky here. It's fine. 1/30th of a second, no problem. That's an extra stop that I just got by going to 1/30th of a second. And I got that stop because I'm using IBIS, because I have in-body image stabilization built into the 6. Let's go to 1/15th of a second. Hello. They're practically, look at these two images. This is 1/15th of a second. Hey, let's go to 1/8th of a second. Well, what do you know? 1/8th of a second handheld with the Fuji X100VI. And it's indistinguishable from 15th and 30 and 60. 60, 30, 15, 8. And it is not until we go to 4 that I finally lose focus. This is 1/4 of a second and I've lost focus. But I got 1/8 of a second. So what does this all mean? Well, what it really means is that now you have two ends of the spectrum with this camera. And we've always had the neutral density filter, right? And just yesterday, somebody on the channel said, do you ever really use the neutral density filter on this camera? Oh my gosh, yes. I live in Florida and it's really bright all the time outside. And if I want to use a shallow depth of field outside, I have to engage that neutral density filter. I have to knock down that sun so I can use that shallow depth of field. I use it all the time. And now I've got the other end of the spectrum. So I already had a built-in device in the camera that would let me get 4 stops, or rather get rid of 4 stops of light when I was working in a really bright situation. And now at the other end, I have IBIS, which will let me get 3 stops of light that I could not get into my camera using the Fuji X100V. It really does work. It really does show in a practical application, and I know that I will be using it anytime that I am in a dark place and I don't want to use a flash. Knowing that I can go even slower on my shutter speed and get the shot that I want is going to be great. Because with cameras, it's all about versatility, and it's all about having the camera be able to give you the vision that you are seeing in your head before you take the picture. All right, be sure and give me a like and give me a subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notifications every time that I put up a new video. And thanks for watching.